morning, everyone. How are we all doing today? It is so exciting to see you all of, I have a Dodgers, that's not good. All of your X-Men outfits, all of your cosplays, all of your t-shirts. You're in the right room, right? We're all here for the X-Men because we're X-Men fans. And so let's bring out our panelists. How about that? And with us today, we've got Lenore Zann. What a great panel. Oh my gosh.
So many familiar faces.
Yeah, so weird. Familiar faces.
You just invited people we know.
That's what we like to do. We like to have a family-friendly feeling.
Hey, Mom. No, you're not my mom. Sorry, go ahead.
First things first, we're not going to try to spoil anything, but things might slip. I'm not going to say anything, but be warned ahead of time. But a very serious question to start us off with, friends. In the case of who Rogue's heart belongs to, who are you? Team Gambit or Team Magneto?
Only one of us is breathing.
Not wrong. Rogue is Gambit's heir. Rogue only loves Gambit, right?
Listen, sugar.
I'm listening.
I think that Rogue, her soulmate, is Remy.
And that's the end of that segment.
And, you know, and we've all seen the Magneto-Rogue affair play out. And, you know, I don't think very many of us can blame Rogue for wanting to find love and, you know, a significant other that she can touch. Hopefully she can also have a family with someday. So I love the storyline and the way it has gone in X-Men 97. But I do think that her true soulmate is Remy, and she's definitely pining for him. So there you go.
That's a good answer.
Magneto is pretty hot, though.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, that X, when you were up on that X, spoilers, in a little banana hammock. New cosplay.
I'm all right with being a consolation prize for the next 40 years.
All right, Gambit accept this.
Larry, Eric, and Julia, you first.
Hey.
Professor X.
Exciting, full house. Larry, Eric, and Julia, you first said goodbye to all these characters in 1997. What is it like to see them back on the screen again?
Well, it's kind of surreal, and it's kind of like having a family and watching them go out into the world and not hearing from them for a couple of years, and then suddenly discovering that we have grandchildren. But it's all part of the same family, and you know the kids are just like their parents, and it's just it's hard to get your head around. It really is.
I'm agreeing with him there. I was one of the writers on the original series, and here with the folks here with X-Men 97, it's beyond surreal, but it's so spectacular, and couldn't be more honored to be a part of it all.
Yeah, no, I am so thrilled that Disney found the will and the money to put the show back on the air, because there's an audience out there that they just didn't realize that really wants to see the X-Men again. So I was very happy that they decided to put the show back on the air and to call, you know, us old folks back in to help them out to do the show. We're really happy that that happened, you know?
lovely cast members, what was your relationship with the X-Men when you were cast on the show? And Lenore, obviously you have a different relationship.
Well, actually, why don't I let Ross go first, because he just joined us, and this is our Professor X.
Sorry I was late. I missed my car and I was running over here, so forgive the sweat. But I think, like we talked about this a lot, that most of us had a relationship, very profound relationship with the show as kids. And I've said this many times before. I've met all you guys 5 or 6 years ago, I think. I think it was right. Yeah, we met in Ecuador 2 years ago, of all places. And at the time, I was obviously not a part of the show, but I told them that that show was the reason why I wanted to become an actor, and quite literally. And I got into Marvel Comics and all that world because of this show. And all the money I made from lawn mowing and babysitting went to buying Marvel Comics and Marvel comic cards, like series 1 through 3, Marvel Masterpieces. Like, I have all those still. My mom was gonna throw them away. I said, for the love of God, don't throw them away. Yeah, it's meant everything to me. And it's just a surreal joy, and it's incredible to be a part of this 30 years later, from going from a 10-year-old boy to working on it as a 42-year-old man. But it's amazing, yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I hadn't read the comics when I first played Rogue, and we didn't have an internet, we didn't have social media, there was not even any Wikipedia that you could look up things. So I just heard that I had this audition for a cartoon, an animated series, and they were looking for an actress with a deep, husky, sexy voice who could do a southern accent, and that's exactly the description. And my agent said, Lenore, it's you gotta go and do this audition. And I skipped the first audition because I wasn't that interested in just doing voice work. I was doing film and TV, and I'd just come back from doing a play in New York for like a year. But then the callbacks came, and she said, Lenore, they still haven't found the right actress, and it's because it's you. So get your ass down there and audition. And I just walked into the studio and took a look at the character, and she was standing there with an attitude and a sassy look on her face and one hand on her hip in that classic pose. And I thought, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And I just walked into the booth and I did the first little pass, which was a little monologue that they had for me. And I heard people screaming on the other end of the headphones in LA. And I found out since it was Larry. And I heard him go, don't let her leave the building. That's her, that's Rogue.
That's what we said. Don't let her leave the building. We found her.
Yeah. So, and the rest is history, and I'm just so grateful to be part of this.
Well, my story's not as cool, but I mean, I grew up like Ross, like all of us, with just watching the cartoon. I mean, my brother and I would religiously watch it on, Fox Kids, and whenever we could grab it, we would record it on VHS, and I had a notebook that I would like take notes. It was just so lame, but I was like, all right, I got to keep track of this because everything was so dense. But I remember one of the first things I ever wanted to cosplay was Gambit, and it wasn't until I was in like high school or college I was like, I can figure this out now. I have the tools. I can do this. But the first comic I ever saved up for was Gambit's first appeal, the 266, and like, yeah, he's just anything Gambit I could get my hands on as a kid was like an obsession. But it started with the show, and I've seen that interview with you guys where you guys were like, yeah, we got this Gambit guy, no one's ever done anything with him, he's kind of this weird rogue that you defined what that character is for a generation, and I mean, for me as a weird kid who didn't know what his place was, I just latched onto him and the rest of the X-Men team as like something to carry me through the horrors of high school and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a deep, deep obsession, so to be here with you guys is surreal.
I mean, what AJ said is exactly right. We were just talking about this backstage, and we were just unapologetic nerds through and through. So, like, to be part of this is just so incredible and such a humbling experience. And I think that for a lot of us, and for many of you up there, I'm sure that the show is just part of our DNA at this point. Like, I think it's just kind of a given. If you're into this stuff, like X-Men is part of the experience that you have when you're part of the Marvel experience, and that certainly was me. And for me, when I was a kid, my parents separated when I was a kid, and so Marvel stories literally saved me during that time. And so being able to experience that in this way and being part of this group has been so incredible. And when I got the opportunity to audition, I think you guys probably saw it was like something, it was named something different, like it was a code name, we didn't really know what it was. Like,
Was it like Ryan and Ben?
yeah, it's different, yeah, I think mine was Boris, like, the name's Boris, punk. Yeah, that's weird. So that was it, and good thing I lived by myself because I was so excited once I figured out what it was, and I was just so thrilled to get the chance to audition, and now finally 2 years later, you know, we're here and we get to experience it with all of you, so that's my experience and I'm so thrilled to be part of it. It's great.
Well, mine definitely is not as cool as any of them, but quite differently in a way. Well, obviously, I also grew up watching the '90s show, but I'm originally from Brazil, and so I think it was a little bit differently. For me at least, it wasn't religiously on Saturdays. I can't remember when they showed up, but I would watch them at my mom's kitchen, you know, either on the weekends or during the week. And unfortunately, I grew up with the dubbing version. You know, but it was definitely my first superhero love. I've been saying this, you know, Wolverine was always my favorite together with Gambit. But huge impact. And you know, the thing that I like, it's been so awesome hearing these stories because some I knew a little bit, but details even Lenore just telling today. And the thing that I take away from it is like something that I believe so much in life, and I've heard throughout my professional career, that when something is for you, it's for you. And I think like believing that those stories, you really touched me deeply. And though, and I've been saying this too, it's the truth, and I'm a little embarrassed, but like I did not know Roberto da Costa and Sunspot, unfortunately, because it wasn't in the original, and I wasn't didn't grow up with comics. I was a tennis player. I wanted to be a professional tennis player. You know, acting came later in life, but I've always been passionate about fire. I love the sun. I love the weather. And you know, when I started getting Instagram, like learning the Instagram thing, they have this fire filter that I've been using it for years. So when I got it, I'm like, okay, I guess it's meant for me too. Anyway, I just like believe the things that you are passionate about and that you love so much, and go at it like 100%, because I do believe the universe always conspires in our favor. So.
If you're wondering, the FBI does have a file on Gui as a serial arsonist. I was not able to watch the show growing up because at 13 I was locked in a Victorian building on 500 acres of woodland in the middle of England in boarding school. And we were not allowed to watch cartoons on Saturday morning. We were in class. So now that everyone feels sorry for me. So my actual exposure originally to it was through the films. There were some comics, because kids always had comics at school, but nothing cohesive. So I would get, stuff from different eras, different writers, different times, and nothing was consistent because people had changed teams, changed sides, changed everything. And so I would read it and go, well, these people have very cool powers, but I do not understand what's happening. So it was the films that actually were my first cohesive introduction to it. And then when this came along, part of it was my wife, who was a fan of it back then and did watch it because she was in the States. She immediately said, okay, well, the whole thing's on Disney Plus, so here you go. So I began and watched it, and actually production gave me a list of the episodes that Magneto was in terms of like, start with these so that you can get up to date quickly, and then if that's where you want to stop, that's fine, that's everything. But of course I went and watched everything because watching cartoons as a job is fun.
We just saw the long legacy that X-Men the Animated Series has had. As actors and as producers and consultants, was there a lot of pressure when you were bringing it back to television, to animation?
Not on us. We were kind of taking a victory lap and a retirement moment watching this happen. And we just felt thrilled to be asked to the party. I mean, these guys, So there was great pressure on us back in 1992 when no one knew what an X-Men show should be like, and we were getting pushback from advertisers and people at the network saying, well, no, where's the silly dog, and where why don't you understand? I can't sell cereal to kids watching these dark shows. What the hell are you doing? And we all worked on dozens of shows over the years, and there's oftentimes you think you've got something really good going, and then one or two things gets changed, and it's not there anymore. And this was lightning in a bottle, and it was very, very stressful for until the show came out and everybody in America watched it. And now suddenly all that criticism was gone. So for the next 4 seasons, we were basically on our own, but at first there was great pressure to change it around, and we have to thank Margaret Lesh, whose baby this is. The reason it exists at all is because she forced it onto Fox, and she stood by us every time someone came up and said, you need to put Magneto on his tricycle because we sold some toys in Australia. She'd say, no, not on my show, thank you. And
What would that sound like, Matthew?
I could have had a tricycle?
all of you Google Australian X-Men Happy Meal, McDonald's Happy Meal toys from 1992, and there's a set of 4, and Storm and Magneto and a couple other folks, I think Scott, have tricycles, and they were serious. They had sent Marvel a check, I don't know, $100,000 for product placement in the show, and they called up saying, well, wait a minute, we've seen the first 6 scripts, where are our tricycles? And we were warned by our production company, unless someone pays them back, we could all be out of a job because it's there in the contract and they need it. And we just, okay, well, we've got a baby and we need the job, but we're not going to put the tricycles in.
We had a lot of pressure with exactly what it's saying, putting product placement and also trying to turn the show, back then a successful show was either Super Friends or Scooby-Doo, and it's not what we wanted to do. We had a specific idea in mind for the X-Men, what we wanted it to be, which is more like a comic book. And we had Margaret Lesh on our side. We had another friend of mine, Will Mineo, who was spearheading the politics to try and clear the path for the rest of us to put on a good show. And my friend Rick Colbert was doing all the models. But yeah, the show that you guys saw, we had to will it into existence because there were so many forces going left and right trying to get us off track. And we had the fortitude to stand by our principles and say, no, this is the show we want to do, and this is what we're going to stick to it. And I think in your book, you also, a couple of times, you told them, when they tried to force us to make the show different, we told them, obviously, we're the wrong creative team for this show. We all quit. And we had to make them back off. And that's how we got the show past that point so that we could get the show in production and everything. So we stood our ground.
Another fun moment of the many crises, it's like the Kennedy books, 6 crises, whatever. But there was a moment where Will, who was supervising all of us and fighting all of our battles for us, who had supervised the design of our characters, which was a slightly simplified version of the Jim Lee drawings. And there are dozens of artists we could have picked from, and they're all wonderful, but Will and Larry were such experienced animators, they knew immediately that Jim Lee's were the perfect ones for animation, and that we had to stick with them. Okay, well, we're 6 weeks into doing it, we've got a bunch of scripts written and a couple storyboards done, and the whole world designed, and we get a note from Marvel on a Friday afternoon saying, oh, you have to throw all that out, you have to do different designs, you can't use the Jim Lee look. Okay, now what? We're already a month behind, what? So Will, in his wisdom, and he did this without consulting anybody, he just took it on himself. He said, okay, and he designed the most obnoxiously horrible, Scooby-Doo-ish looking group of X-Men babies you could design, and sent it in with no comments. Said, okay, here's the new look, guys. Sent it to Stanley, sent it to Marvel, sent it to Fox, and send it to Larry and the other artists, and he's getting these phone calls over because there's no internet. There's no way to connect that way. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you crazy? So by Monday, Marvel had worked it through and said, oh, well, maybe we can let them shoot what they had. The reason, of course, with you guys that know your history, is Jim Lee that week had left with a bunch of other artists to form Image Comics. So Marvel, as a typical company, you can't really blame them necessarily, had said, we're not going to support the guy that just left us. We're not going to show his look to the world. Screw it, we'll do another. So that was what prompted it. But from our point of view, why are you destroying the show from the get-go? And we'll handle it, and we moved on.
It's a great story. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for the cast, how about you? When you were signing on to this project or signing on again, did you feel a lot of pressure to kind of live up to the greatness that we all remember?
I think I felt immense pressure because I think finding the voice was extremely important for all of us who were voice matching, but also trying to make sure that we honored the original source material, or not source material, but the continuation of the 90s iteration, while also finding a new voice and a new tone, because I will say I think it's a lot darker. The 90s version is very, very dark. This version is like, oh my God, I mean, it's every single episode you're just, I mean, we were talking yesterday about well, who else everyone seen the finale? I don't want to spoil it. I probably shouldn't say that because there might be some people who haven't seen it, but there's so many moments in this season where you're just legitimately crying as a fan, and some of those moments were, with Cyclops and Magneto and Rogue, certainly in. Who else? You guys have seen it, right? Everyone's okay. It's just like I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some
episode 5.
Genuine tears in this season, and yeah, I think we all just feel immense pressure to nail it, and I think, I hope you guys are all loving it because we had a blast working on it for the last 2.5 years, and our biggest dream was to make sure that everyone enjoyed it. So, yeah, I think.
It's interesting, for the OG cast, as we're called, the original team, we all got requests to audition for this new show that they wouldn't say what it was, which was exactly the way it had been the first time around back in the 90s. And so there was one point where Byron, who is one of our con agents who's here and brought us here today and this weekend, asked some of us if we wanted to have a practice run of the script before we actually did the auditions, because we could see the characters were the characters we had done back in the 90s. We just took one look and it was like, oh, I read mine, I was like, oh, I've done those lines. That's Rogue. And they were calling her Maria or Marie or something like that, And so Cal Dodd as Wolverine, myself, Beast, George Buza, and also Storm, Allison Seeley Smith. Byron got us together on a Zoom call because we're all in different places, and we read the scenes together, and we went over them a few times so that we could sort of hear each other's voices and kind of go, yeah, I think that's in the pocket, or just to have some support too. And that was really nice to be able to do and to see each other again. And then we auditioned, in this day and age, it's so amazing. I put it on my phone and then turned it into an MP3 and sent it as an attachment to the casting director, Meredith, who had reached out to us. And I just thought, oh, well, if they're doing it and they want Rogue, well, I'm here. So I didn't feel that much pressure because I just felt like, well, if they want me, I'm here. So about a month later, I got word that the producers really loved it, wanted to meet with me. And on Zoom again, they were in LA, I was in Nova Scotia in Canada. And so I did another reading with Meredith Lane, the casting director, who's now the voice director, and Bo DeMeo and Charlie Feldman, who are the two producers on the show. were there, and finally, and after I just did one pass of it, Bo just kind of broke down and went, "Oh my God, Lenore, look, we are fangirling over here, and we really want you to come back. Would you please play Rogue again?" And I was like, "Of course, sugar, you had me at hello," you know. So it was great. It was great to be back.
Great. It's so hard to follow you up. So yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of us younger cast, we all have a similar story where when we saw the breakdown, we were like, okay, this is X-Men, this is a video game, this is a mobile app, what is this? And then once we realized it was a series, I think we all kind of lost our minds. I mean, I know I did, and I was like, oh, this is real, it's coming back. Just as a fan, I was like, oh my God. So I turned to Chandler Bing. So, I don't know why I did that. Oh my God. So I did the audition. I did it like 10 times. Like I just kept doing it over and over and over again because I needed it to sound right. And they sent me clips of Chris Potter and they wanted his voice at that age, at that time. And so I just kept doing it. And then I also tacked on extra lines from the show that were like just things that I had, like the name is Gambit, remember it, and stuff that was just, wasn't in the script, but I knew. Hopefully that would maybe kick my audition across. But yeah, when I got it, I lost my mind. I mean, like, there's no other way to say it, and I scared the crap out of my dogs. I was just like, like I was like, it's terrible, because then there's levels of fear that come with something like this, because I've been lucky to voice like Marty McFly and Gizmo, and I know we both voiced Han Solo, and there's always pressure with that sort of stuff where people go, you're not the guy, you know, and so I was terrified that, and I've seen the internet losing their minds over like, this guy's gonna play Gambit? Marty McFly? So Gizmo, yeah, I was genuinely like sick to my stomach before the premiere, and then finally when people actually saw it, it was like, okay, whew. But yeah, I mean, sick to my stomach, excited, all the emotions that stem from anxiety, I had all of them. So, but I'm thrilled to be here now and that people hate me less.
Can I ask a question? Can I hear a Cajun Gizmo, please? What would that sound like?
Just, oh God, what would it be?
More sugar.
Nailed it.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say that as your text alert now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, cool, AJ's got one. For me, it was kind of an interesting oscillation of extreme pressure and then no pressure, like over the last, because when I got it, I had, obviously Philip Aiken's great performance in the original show to kind of base off the character, but then it was great because once, you talked about Meredith, she's just like an incredible human being. So much of the credit, I feel like, for me goes to her direction. So I felt so comfortable with her, but then as time went on, because I started recording it personally for me, I got the role in late 2021 and started recording early 2022. So there was like, 2 solid years of like no visuals, no music, no advertising, anything. So I remember doing it and being so excited and be like, yeah, this is great. And then like 4 months would go by and be like, how did I do that line? Like, was that okay? Like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And so I had to wait until the premiere happened. And I think that's when kind of I got comfortable again, because a lot of us hadn't met each other. At least I hadn't met a lot of these people, wonderful people yet. And so I was recording my stuff alone, and I just had to trust that it was going to be put together in the way that made sense. And I didn't really know what the result was going to be. But then once we got to the El Capitan premiere, that was spectacular because I got to meet the cast and the OG cast and all the fans. Some of you were here today that were at the premiere, and it was an amazing experience. But I think the thing that really took it home for me to realize that, oh no, this is a great thing, is sitting in the theater with my mom next to me, because she's the one that watched me do Baby Gonzo when I was 2 years old for like a year, and like all these voices, like in like Ursula and Little Mermaid, like all these random things that I did as a kid. But the core memory now is it was her and my brother and one of my best friends with me, and I think it was the opening title sequence or something was happening, which is like everybody was losing their minds when we saw it for the first time all together. And sitting in the theater, having that happen, and my mom turned and just smiled up at me, and I was like, okay, I did something good. Like, this is great. So yeah, I was like, okay, no, this is gonna be good. We're gonna have a good time. So that's my experience with it.
Well, I'm definitely the foreigner of the family, clearly, because no, I mean, I think more than pressure was a sense of responsibility for sure, because I firstly did not know who Roberto da Costa was. That was the name, but I never put two and two together, though there was like Elijah, there was, a code name as well. But I did not know it was for X-Men 97. Everybody knew. I did not know. So, I auditioned for the thing, we all audition and send it into the ether, and you usually don't hear anything back, and I auditioned it twice. Obviously it was, it said Brazilian, I did it like with a very thick Brazilian accent, I did with my regular accent. But I did audition it twice, and then a couple of months later, I got the email saying that I got the role, that I was going to be a superhero, and I was shocked. I'm like, what did I audition for? I have no clue. And then as I, read the email, it said X-Men 97. I'm like, what? It's like, oh my God, it's X-Men. So I was obviously riveted. And then, like Lenore said, we are very fortunate that we have YouTube and a Marvel database. We have everything to go through and get all the information and the research. So that's what I did. And though I don't know, I was like, well, they clearly liked my voice and what I'm doing. So so I just felt a little bit of this sense of trust. But definitely, huge responsibility, to represent my country and represent Latin culture. That was so huge to me, and it's actually, since it's come out, it's been so much more like the repercussion it's had, and all the feedback I've been getting. It's so humbling and so surreal. That's the word I've been using. It's incredibly surreal to be part of something I grew up watching. And my good friend, I don't know if he's here, but one of my best friends, he was like, dude, you have no idea what you got yourself into. And I literally did not. And since it started, it's been, wow, yes. So anyway.
Audition was the same as everyone else's. The tweak to mine was that our main director, Jay Castorena, knew my wife because he had been on Justice League Action that she was Wonder Woman in. And so after the initial audition was sent in, I got a phone call saying, hey, they want to do a test record of an episode as the callback. I said, okay, and we went and did that. And in the middle of it, at one point, we stopped for a break for a couple of minutes, and I sort of went back to the house to go into the kitchen to get something to eat or take a break. And my wife Rachel was in there, and she said, Jake's texting me that it's going really well. I said, don't tell me that, I'm in the middle of it. Okay, so then I refused to go back into the house until the thing was done. Because I'm just sort of doing it and going, I think I'm doing my best to sound like David, and also to not just sound like I'm doing an impression of David. Because that's the thing when you're taking over from somebody and you're trying to voice match them, is it can be easy to mimic a voice and not act. And it can be easy to act and lose the voice. And so, as Isaac said, one of the godsends is that Meredith is really, really good at helping us to stay on voice and to stay in acting. And also being the filter, I'm pretty sure, of when the writers or producers or directors are like, can you tell them to be better? And her going, okay, so try this way. Or like, can you have him stop sounding like a drunken squirrel? Okay, so what we're going to do is this. So that helps a huge amount, having somebody who you really trust who's sort of guiding you.
Talk a little about the high drama of the show. You've got love triangles, best friends. We've got coming of age story. What was your favorite moments to record, to voice act? What were your favorite scenes to do or to watch?
Sugar, I can't feel you. Favorite part.
I wasn't there for that, so I didn't have That's why you liked it. So we didn't get to record a lot of stuff together. We got to do one tiny thing real quick, but the scene we do where it's kind of the, spoilers, breakup scene with the cards and the fire and all that was such a great moment. But yeah, that was one of my favorite bits because you rarely get to see Gambit not just making quips and disappearing into the ether. So yeah, that moment was awesome, as well as that moment in episode episode 5, which we did like 1,000 times. Yeah.
1,000 different ways.
Yes, it was crazy. It was screaming it, whispering it, the whole thing. No spoilers. Ross?
Well, it's impossible to answer without, it's like, has everyone seen the whole show? I just don't know, really don't want to spoil
Cover your
it.
ears.
So, okay.
You're in the room. You should get
I figured as much, but I just want to make sure. This last episode, where Magneto and Charles are in Magneto's mind, we must have did that a year and a half ago, I think.
It was a long time ago,
Long
and then there was doing it, and then there was all of the tweaks and adjustments, because even the version that was in the show, once it was sort of edited out, it was still different from the last version, at least recorded.
Yeah, because I remember there was one version where I really lay into him about Logan. I'm like, what you did to Logan, I cannot believe, and just like it's going off, and then you're like, he was meant to kill me, how did all this, and
There were so many variations of that between like Fierce, like he was trying to kill me, and other ones was like,
it was such a moment, and then because it was at the end of episode 9, like Jesus, I mean it's just taken right from Fatal Attraction, and it was so funny because when I met Matthew 2 months ago.
Yeah, it was at the premiere. It was the first time we did it, actually.
Yeah, but I'd hear his voice in my ear oftentimes where I'd be the first to record a scene or he'd be the first to record a scene. It's not like it was in the 90s where you'd have all the same people in the room, which was, it's a wonderful way to work in that you all have your freedom, you can work around each other's schedules, but it also kind of sucks because that camaraderie and that bouncing off of ideas is no longer there. So we were just kind of having to guess at how, without ever having met each other, how this person would perform the scene or how I would perform, so we were doing all these different variations and shifting, yeah.
And a lot of the time, we've talked about Meredith, a lot of the time it's responding to Meredith reading us in, with her having heard the other one, and so it's her version of us doing the line. Unfortunately, she's great, but still it's not the person. So you're just having to kind of play, and at a certain point you just have to put your trust in. If you get the direction of like, adjust this way, and you think, that doesn't really make sense, but I don't know any of the other context, so I just have to assume that they do, and do what I'm asked.
But for me, that was probably my favorite to do over the last couple of years, yes.
Good. Same for me, yeah.
For me, any version of a catchphrase is great. So saying "time for an exorcism, punks" was one of my favorite moments, and then I screamed for an hour and a half after that to shoot the. So that was great. And then I think another favorite moment of mine was. This is a final episode, cameo spoiler, but getting the chance to voice King T'Chaka was really awesome. I did not expect that. I think they might have asked me maybe on the day to do that, because I voiced Black Panther for Disney Parks and Avengers Campus here and in Paris and a couple of other projects, and so I'm very familiar with that accent, and I'm very close to that character, so getting to do someone from Wakanda, I was like, I'm all in, please, anything you want, this is great. And then the scene with, again, last episode, but the scene with Forge, that whole thing, I did that probably a year and a half ago, so it was like a fever dream recording that, because I barely remember it, but I saw it again and I was like, oh, that's what it meant. Oh, I get it now. I see it. Okay, it all makes sense. Thank goodness it came together, but yeah, it was really, really fun. Loved it.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, watching it definitely, and it was the only part, I think, that I was brought in 2 or 3 times, and I was very nervous because I'm like, am I fucking this up? And like, oh my God.
There's kids in the audience.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, my bad.
In America, we don't curse in front.
Yes, I'm sorry. Just in Brazil, okay. I apologize. I thought it was X-Men 97, anyway.
No, they've heard worse, I'm sure.
So thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry.
But and like everybody said, I had not met anybody before, and so I really was nervous because I didn't want to get fired or anything. I thought I was not doing a good job, but things change and stuff. But when we finally, we had seen him previously, but when he finally says, "My name is Sunspot," or "The name is Sunspot," and so that was obviously such a thrill, and to be watching it on the big screen as we got to do it, with a lot of the fans, it was super, super awesome. But I also really enjoyed in the first episode having my little bit with Wolverine, because again, that was my first love and dream. And so to having like claw Roberto in his eyes.
I love that part. It's great.
Yeah, that's so fun. So that was a really good part to record.
We're going to go to fan questions in a second, so if people want to start lining up at that microphone. But one last question for our lovely panel from me, which is, Isaac kind of mentioned, last episode we got some cameos in there. Who would you like to see team up with the X-Men next?
Spider-Man.
Stole my answer, yeah.
Spider-Man. That's what we all want. I want Spider-Man. Next.
Spider-Man.
I'm kind of partial to Moon Knight myself.
Good call. Good call, yeah.
10 Gambits.
All different.
Yeah, oops, all Gambits.
All in different outfits.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, exactly. All different Gambits. Sorry, everyone. I jumped right on that. Yeah. Quiet, Punker Ducky. If you guys don't follow Punker Ducky,
Oh, no, hi, yeah.
X-Men
Fantastic,
memes.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just a plug for your... I don't get paid for this. I don't. I get 10% of all laughs. That's my... Sorry. Go ahead. Matthew, who's your favorite?
Oh, it's me.
I know you don't know anything about Marvel. So.
I know nothing. I only know. I read what's put in front of me. I know nothing else. No, I would actually take a character away, and it would be Gambit.
That's right. I deserve that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the thing is that there's so many in this season that they got in, especially in the last couple of episodes, that a lot of the really fun ones are there. I mean, look, we said Spider-Man. That's the easy call.
Hey.
But if Spider-Man's in, I do want to see the very. I like the wisecracking Venom. I like the smart-ass Venom. So I would want that in there as well.
Going way back in the Wayback Machine, it is a thrill to see Nightcrawler.
And if we could, for the next 10 episodes, boycott any more characters so we can spend more time with the current cast. That was the hardest thing when we were supervising the writing in the first 5 years, was writers would come up and say, I've got 703 mutants that I remember from the books. I want them all in the episode. And having to, we understand, we'll take one, but yeah, let's have some episodes where there are 2 or 3 of these people and we spend 10 minutes with each of them.
What's most interesting to me about the cameos is that when I was working on the series, that's exactly the one thing they told me not to do. And my first cameo was Spider-Man, and they took it out. They said, you can't do Spider-Man. So the next time I saw it, there was an episode called Slave Island, and the writers wrote, they didn't know the Marvel mythology, they wrote Mutant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I went home, physically brought my comic book collection to work, Xeroxed all the pages, and I said, okay, let's do Avalanche, let's do Blob, let's do Pyro, here I populate the island with all the Marvel characters, but I kept the original names, Mutant 1, 2, 3, and put it in a system, heard nothing, I'm like, I got it. That's how you got Doctor Strange as a mutant magician. You got the Watcher as a mutant alien. Man, just put the word mutant in front of anything. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's how all of those cameos got into the system. I think Black Panther was African mutant number 3. So that's how everything happened. And now I'm so happy that now they embraced all of my cameos.
Learning new ways to fight the man every day. Put it in front of the name. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Louise. I've met some of you already. Hi. I was thinking about this question while y'all were talking about your experience with the original show. What is the episode or scene from the movie that has stuck with you the most? Like for me, it's the episode where the alien electric monster and how it like grabbed Jubilee and like kind of just left her in that trance, you know? So what's an episode from the original series or from the movies that stuck with you?
I got one. That is like Wolverine up in Alaska, I think, where he's just trying to find a little peace and quiet, and of course Sabretooth follows him there, and he's like, "No, not on my watch." And there's this line that has stuck with me since 30 years ago, where you know he's obviously under attack by Sabretooth, and he's trying to save these people, and he just yells out, "There's no peace for me. There's no peace for me anywhere." And I was like, I resonate with that. You know? As a 12 or 13-year-old kid who's going through puberty, I had terrible acne and glasses and braces, and I was a beanpole, and I got picked on all the time. You know? And that show, Wolverine specifically, I was like, this guy gets it. He knows what it's like to be picked on and be isolated. And I was like, I want to be like him. So that's the thing that...
I'm going to follow on the Wolverine wagon here because the one, I don't know if I really remember, but I went back to watch and I'm like, yes, that's like really, I love this scene so much. Logan goes and chops off Cyclops' car, right the hood of the car, and he's like, tell Cyclops that I made him a convertible. I love that, I love that scene.
Okay. God, the problem is I've seen Night of the Sentinels like 1,000 times, so most of the things that are like, this one's for you, Morph, it's just in my head forever. But there's a really funny line that's always stuck with me that I feel like was a studio note for you guys, where Mystique goes, we have to go to Stonehenge in England. And it's like this long pause where she had to clarify where Stonehenge was, and that cracked me up as a kid. And then when I rewatch, because I've rewatched them a bunch of times, it kills me. Because she stated that we have to go to Stonehenge in England. And it's like, it's one of the funniest lines. I'm assuming, do you guys remember that?
It had to be that.
It had, because it's such an obvious...
All the kids will know where Stonehenge.
Yes, exactly. And I could feel you guys be like, we have to just, because the animation pauses, and then she goes, in England. It's so good. But, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the show. It's just such a funny moment, because you guys obviously had to deal with that, and I love that. Especially now hearing your stories, that it's like, well, all right, we gotta know. They don't know where Stonehenge is. But Night of the Sentinels will forever be burned into my brain as the episode that just always was on. All the mall stuff with Jubilee and Morph, no. You know, like, go ahead, Isaac.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. This is actually from the movies. For whatever reason, my best friend and I in high school loved anytime Cyclops said or yelled Jean in any form. We just like, and it was so hilarious and goofy to us. So like, all of high school would be like, I love Jean, like all the time. Just so that moment, and I love the actors in that movie. So, but it was just so much fun for us to connect over that specific moment of the films. But yeah, that stuck with me for a very long time.
Mine is actually and I don't remember the names or anything, but there's in the original series there is an episode where they're on like a spaceship or a space station, and the sort of the entire sequence when they're there to me was brilliant because it was this vaguely S&M laced, you know, outfit and thing, and everybody, and like it felt like all of the
Larry,
seeing it. Did that touch a nerve? Yeah, and the thing was like it's never addressed or anything. It's just that's the costuming but all of the lines and all the interactions. As soon as I saw that, and like I was watching that episode like when I was like exercising or something, and I suddenly realized, and so I'm catching bits of it, and every time I catch a bit of it, it's a line that out of context is really inappropriate. And then when I look over and see the costumes, I'm like, this was more adult than I thought. Okay. Yeah, that one I just love it. And then, funnily enough, at the same time, the showrunner Bo, I guess, was rewatching that episode, and he'd like tweeted stuff on it, and I went, "Oh, I'm watching that one too." He's like, "Yeah." All right. It's like it seems late. He goes, "Yeah." yeah, I like that one.
That costume was accurate to the that was the thing I always tried to do, was always be accurate to the books, no matter how it looked, because I wanted to make it into a living comic book, the show.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the costume was kind of like interesting, but I just went for it.
Costume.
Yeah, that was the costumes they did back then, so it's like, okay, there it is, it's Eric the Red, hey, go for it.
He's behind the curtain every day.
I love this. Is it One Man's Worth?
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Favorite
Wolverine
episode.
and Nightcrawler. Is that the one? Or what's the one with Wolverine and Nightcrawler?
That's just called Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite episodes, when Wolverine is really searching for himself and what his purpose is. And we've never seen him quite so vulnerable as when like Rogue walks into the church and sees him on his knees praying, and that whole episode really touched me, watching it and performing it. But you know, I just love seeing characters that you know are badass, but then you get to see the vulnerability underneath that. I think that's just so beautiful.
Yeah, just that episode, just so you know, we lucked out in having a broadcast standards and practices person. That's usually the person that shuts anything creative down. We had a person called Avery Colburn, who didn't come from Saturday Morning. She came from live action, and she allowed the writers to actually write scripts to push the boundaries, and got that script okayed so we could get that kind of show on the air.
Hi, what's your name? What's your questions?
So, hello, my name is Freya, and I have met two of you. And right before I ask my question, I would like to make a shout out to my mom, who's right over here.
Hi, Mom.
And my question is, other than your power, what power would you have?
It's fun to think of us as having powers, because it does sound like we have power. You know,
It's
I like
We do.
We do. I guess that's a yes.
other than your power.
The one that's easy for me is I have small children, so he makes an appearance in episode 5, Multiple Man, who can just regenerate himself. That would be very useful right now. If I could have like 8 of me, so 1 for each kid, 1 to work, 1 to take care of, like that'd be great. So it's not the most thrilling, but Multiple Man would be awesome.
And it really is, like, to me, I think, like the coolest thing to teletransport, but also like to, you know, use it in real life. I'm so like a little bit of too much energy and too much anxiety going on, so I'd rather be able to like be anywhere I want very quickly. So I think that makes sense.
Nightcrawler?
Nightcrawler.
Yes.
It's kind of a classic answer, but I have yet to do a lot of traveling in my life, and I want to, and so I think flight would be really cool just to see. I just want to see more of the world, you know. So
I would love to see you like up in the sky, like oh, there he goes.
yeah, just on a Tuesday afternoon.
Going to
just,
Florida.
Yeah.
I think I'd choose morph, because I feel like it kind of feeds back into, we do a lot of voice matching and stuff, and so to not have to think about it, and just to become, Michael J. Fox or Harrison Ford or Howie Mandel or whatever, just be like, woo, like, so I don't have to think about this. That'd be fun. Plus, you basically have every power, so it's like cheating. It's like wishing for more wishes.
No,
So.
it's physical. It's only physical, not like elemental.
Quiet, you. This is my fantasy. It's only physical. No, that's fine. Please, I've gotten to so many arguments about like, well, Gambit can't charge, and I'm like, stop it. Lenore here. Okay.
Yes, Charlie. I think I would love the Wolverine's power to heal. I think that would be pretty amazing. Although you might get pretty exhausted because so many people need healing. But, but I think that would be an amazing thing to have.
That would be my power too.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Good choice.
A few weeks ago, I sprained my arm, so if it wasn't 2 weeks, I would still be here, but I don't like waking.
We love you, Freya.
Thank you.
I think if we go quickly, we can do one more. So what's your name and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Travis, and I was just wondering if each of you could give us a previously on X-Men.
Go ahead, Ross. Pressure.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Previously on X-Men.
That was really good. Well, previously, Sugar, on X-Men.
Previously on X-Men, Mezzanine.
Previously on X-Men.
Ay, meu Deus. Previously on X-Men.
Previously on X-Men.